so the others, if they want to renew, and so we're looking for people that want to do fundraising, that want to, that can help us with that piece of it. So, is that what your board for NAMI is, or do you have a board member?
We do. So we have a NAMI. We employ a business development person also who has been doing this for years and years and years. So it's really relies much more on her in general, but the board definitely helps with like sponsorships for the walk and all that kind of stuff. But really, in the end, I mean, it's her job. It is her job description to do that. And so and she's been phenomenal. She's been with us. I think she's only been there for like a year or two now, and she's been she drastically increased kind of what we did for the walk last year versus other years and stuff. So I mean, that's been really cool because I think it's such a fine balance, you know, because there are like I feel so passionate and give my time, yet I don't have like these amounts of people who I can rely on. Who give like $20,000. Yet there are other people who do have those contacts, you know, and those people you want like a fine balance. People who will give their time, who feel passionate about it, but also then some, like you're saying, some people have because there are absolutely tons of people out there.
And we focus more on Boca because of the L's here.
Sure. I know that Autism Six had a really hard time this year with their walking, and also their numbers way down as well. So it's a difficult year in general.
And you would think, I don't know, maybe with the taxes next year it'll be better, you know, because
maybe.
you're saying people will have more discretionary cash.
Sure.
Yeah, if you go right down there, it's the on your right.
Okay.
It's just before you go out the door.
Okay.
Netflix, you watch all the movies you want for like $8 plus, like $10, $20 a month. That's still, it may be expensive for $8, but it's better deal than spending $2 a week. So maybe like $40 a month. If you really want that game stuff. Or just buy it.
Fair.
Right.
I just buy it.
Great.
I would feel pretty uncomfortable if I was in the audience and that was on.
Even into the football. I got it for my birthday, I was so thrilled.
We might want to better somehow make it more like informal or something.
The problem is this video. Yeah. I thought of that when we put it down here and then, really, I mean, even you can't move the chairs or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if your parents treat once in a while, just let them, let my parents treat me as well once in a while. Okay. Maybe that's the years ago.
Hi, how are you?
And then I remember buying the weed when it was stopped. But once they afterwards, buying the weed, it finally came in stock.
How you doing? Oh, yeah. Morning. Very cool.
I had the weed. I remember when I went to the PlayStation 4 on Shop 13, they were out, so I actually bought the weed system.
Well, you were a pioneer. Yes. It's been a long trip.
Yeah. I've been trying to get to the winter I can, but I play Mario more.
Yeah, she'll be done.
Yeah, we have to switch time to always. I listen. I listen as well.
Right, right.
Okay. When I was in university, do you remember Mario Kart? The GameCube?
Yes.
Usually GameCube games were like $3. I went to the flea market when I was in university. I saw Mario Kart Dasher and another game where I bought two of them. I asked Kate, hey, how much is for the GameCube? The game's left. And she said, oh, you want this game? $1. Oh, cool. I got you good for one. At the university, I like the flea market there. I got you the two games for $1.
We're gonna have a very small group tonight.
There's like 1, 2, the next ice salad.
We might have to
And usually GameCube games are like
put up the lights a little bit in the beginning.
For the introduction?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just use
And then,
it,
yeah.
Yes. I salad it's like $1. Oh, sorry.
Just wait a few minutes, hopefully more people will show.
Great issue, like we can't use for fun for GameCube games. signed up here or no?
No, you had registered.
Oh, okay.
You're all set.
Okay.
Thanks, Derek.
You're welcome.
coming. There's a few people coming in, so we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Thanks.
Blue, it looks freshly blue.
I think about a year ago. Yes. 1 year and then
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. I know that it's quite breezy out there and we're expecting a cold front, but I appreciate all of you fighting the weather to come here tonight. This will be hopefully a very interesting presentation. We will be, the format for tonight is we will be first showing, it's about an hour and 15 minutes, Autism and Love. It's a documentary. Have any of you seen it yet? There are a few places where I'm just warning you that it's a little hard to watch, but it is hopeful. The ending is hopeful, so hang in there. There are times when it's hard to watch some of the challenges. That's what I found when our team was looking at it, but I want you to know, and I wish someone had told me, that it does end up hopeful. There are a series of questions that we provided you, and we wanted you just to kind of be thinking about some of these things as you go through. This is a documentary that really identifies the challenges of individuals with autism in romantic relationships. And romantic relationships can be challenging for anyone, but for people with autism, they can be particularly challenging. So some of the things we wanted to talk about before we start the presentation tonight, the screening, is to think about what your definition of love is, what your definition of dating is, and then how do you define a romantic relationship? Those will be some of the questions that will be answered as we go through the screening. And then there will be some audience questions there that we'll be posing after you have a chance to see the film. And then there will be some questions we'll be calling afterwards our panelists up. And we're very fortunate tonight. We have Allison Bordeaux. She will be serving as our moderator. And then we have Dr. Kelly Everson, who will be serving on the panel. And we have two very successful young men with autism. And I'll be introducing them afterwards. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the film then? Thank you.
That would have been too much. So I might as well put these nice sweatpants on and this nice shirt on. It's a little too much, I think. But next time when we have a good and you're right where it's okay?
one thing I will mention is that at times, if you ask a question, there may be occasions where it may take me a little while to respond, but that's only because I'm just trying to process the incoming speech, and then I'm trying to verbally process the answer. So you may hear a pause, at times, so.
I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. I like living in St. Paul.
I never knew for sure if I was going to get married or not. So that is something that I never was really fixated on doing. It's always been important to me to have somebody in my life. But whether or not I was married to that person, I wasn't sure about. So what kind of questions you got to ask me?
Good. I feel good about documentaries.
I'm comfortable with looking at anyone on the camera, actually, so.
Hello? Like to buy a cigar? Yeah. Let me see that big one up there. Yeah, I got something to ask you. Did you hear about that one basketball coach who lived a long time ago?
What happened to him?
The Celtics coach. Brad Auerbach. Did you ever hear about that guy? I'll tell you what he did. Tell me what you think about this, okay? Every time, he was stubborn, arrogant, and he was a jerk, okay? And every time he won a big game, he won 9 championships. Okay. Every time he won a big game, he would smoke a cigar, and he would rub it in the other team's face. What? He would how much is this thing?
$9.80. $10. Want to send us back? Would you like it back?
I'm good.
Have a good day.
Chill.
I knew that there was something special with Lenny right away. And he would always move his hands, he would get excited and move his hands, and he was always really, really meticulous about stuff, even when he was little, where it needed to be. He just, when he wouldn't talk, I knew that there was something going on. It's been hard. You've got this kid that doesn't really want to be autistic, and Lenny's smart enough to know that he's different, and he doesn't like it. That's a big, big struggle.
Sometimes in my life, I try to pretend I was never autistic. Felt like I had to hide it from people because they heard you were it, and they would kind of laugh at you a little bit. People would think you're he's cool, and if they found out I was in that situation, they would be like, oh, he's kind of a weird kid, we shouldn't be hanging out with him. Sometimes I feel a little bit scared because, let's say you see a girl and she likes you and all this stuff, and maybe if you admit that you're autistic, maybe she'll be like, I don't want to be with you no more because you're autistic. I feel that can be a little hurtful a little bit. I'm single, by the way. Been single for a long time. Had one girlfriend, but it didn't quite work out that well. I don't want to talk about that, is that okay? Just, bad memories.
She was really not very nice. And I know that sex was a really big issue because she had wanted to have sex and then he didn't want to. And they split up for a while. And then when he got back together with her, they ended up having sex. And it wasn't like a good thing. Like I really didn't realize how little Leonard knew until recently. Like he didn't know anything.
I just want to tell those young kids don't have sex or, you're gonna get screwed one day.
When you can have sex with the girl or the guy, for both of you, when I feel like it doesn't have to happen the first day, no way. You're jumping the gun. You're shooting the gun right away. You gotta do it when it's like a couple of months into it, man. Or maybe a year. When you get married. That's what I think. Don't have sex on the first day. That's not love, that's not love when you do it on the first day when you meet someone for the first time. That's called reckless love. That's called reckless.
He's lonely, he wants a girlfriend. And his dad's not around. And it just doesn't have that positive male role model to kind of tell him, like, this is how you do it, this is what you do, this is, he's got me, he's got mom.
National Autism Conference from the Autism Society of America in Nashville, Tennessee in July of 2005. We started calling it Relationship in the fall of that year, maybe 3 or 4 months later, and met up at another conference. And I asked her, how would you feel about being in a relationship with me? She said, well, I'm confused, but I could see if this may work. Just confused at first, but she could see this working. We'll give it a try.
I think that autism definitely presents unique challenges to our relationship. Our particular routines and rigidities and our particular comfort zones. And we're so fixated on that it's sometimes difficult to communicate to each other.
Love your neck.
Oh, thanks. Did I ever tell you one reason I love jewelry so much is because it gives me a sort of a shield to sort of protect myself from sort of vulnerable elements. It makes me
That's news to me, actually.
Oh, really?
Vulnerable elements.
Yeah, I kind of discovered that after wearing necklaces for the past especially the last 10 years, I've really been into wearing heavy jewelry, and I discovered a reason why it was that it kind of makes me, because I feel so vulnerable and feel so shy and, introverted, that wearing the jewelry kind of makes me feel that sort of false sense of confidence, and it kind of makes me feel less vulnerable. It makes me feel like it's sort of a shield, sort of protect myself from feeling more vulnerable.
Oh, it looks like the weather just came on. I was like, can I catch a glimpse here and see what he says about it?
I can't ever interrupt you with the weather.
Well, you can always be near me, like, you may not talk to you as much.
We tried to treat her as
normally as we possibly could. All the time making allowances in our own mind for the fact that she might not be able to do everything quite as fast or quite as well or something like that, but just trying to raise her as normally as we possibly could.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Lindsay.
If we all evidently come equipped with social antenna that we don't even realize we have, we know instinctively when we are getting too close to someone physically, when we seem to be pushing them a little further than they want to be pushed, when maybe we should back off and not be quite so bossy or controlling. Lindsay didn't have the antenna.
Lindsay, can you wave? Say, Lindsay. Lindsay.
It's sort of mystifying. But the absence of that antenna, very hard. That was very challenging for her. She wanted to fit in.
Senator Robert Wagner sponsored the act.
What's the National Labor Relations for? What's the National Labor Relations for?
Rob, what's the National Labor Relations for? Correct. Come on, Mr. Ford. Motorcyclist Eagle Knievel is called this on his tombstone.
What's a daredevil?
By the Smithsonian.
What's a daredevil?
Joshua, what is a daredevil? That's it.
I did very well, huh? Thank you. Thank you.
What are you having for dinner tonight?
Sole fish with mashed potatoes. Any kind of mashed potatoes?
Not yet.
Are you cooking?
My mother's cooking.
Okay. Do you ever cook?
I cook hot dogs every Sunday. I cook hot dogs every Sunday.
When he was young, did you think that he would be capable of a romantic relationship?
No, I didn't dare hope. I didn't dare hope.
Although his expression was not there, but he had knowledge.
我覺得來講呢個呢個條喺個路呢是靠佢有靠係有下嘅路下基本來呢樣靠咩有開始呢個台邊嘅咩
But of course, he still does not elaborate and doesn't express himself too well about his real feelings. His language is still not up to the way it should be. He talks and he communicates and
In a certain way.
in a certain way.
So tell me more about your job, Steve.
Well, I was doing assembly work and I was working in stamps and I worked on trays.
What's trace?
Trays means to fold for the United States Postal Service.
Okay. And so when you do stamps, tell me about what you have to do for stamps.
Put them in envelopes.
How many do you do a day, would you say?
500.
Wow, that's a big workload.
Yes.
Wow. And how many hours a day do you work?
8 hours. From
8
7 until 3.
Okay. How do you get to work?
By bus.
Do you take one bus or more than one?
Just a bus, just one bus.
Just one bus?
Yes.
Do you like the bus?
Yes.
aim was he should become independent. He should be able to hold down a job. That, thank God, we accomplished without him being institutionalized.
He's a bad man, this guy.
What's up, Dave? What's up, Mom? Who said the game first?
So you talked about a dating website a little bit.
Yeah, I think I might want to do that.
What would you put if you were like putting like,
I don't know. So I like to keep it private to me and you only. I'm just serious. I'm not going to be no joking around.
okay, if you were gonna put on a dating website like your interest,
Sports.
okay? What else? You wouldn't put, how come you wouldn't put any of like the Comic-Con stuff? Do you think that would?
I won't do it
How come?
because I don't want to.
Okay.
That's you, that's...
So why don't you don't want to find somebody that likes that kind of thing? So what other interests would you put?
I don't know. I'll be taken more serious.
So you want like a serious girl?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. A businesswoman?
No, not completely. What I pay for the debts, me. That's the way it goes.
Okay.
That's the way shit goes. I'm not gonna let her pay for everything to me. You know, I gotta be the one that's the more independent one than her.
But I don't think that that's fair.
No, it is fair.
Chauvinistic.
No, it's not.
I think a little bit. I mean, what if there's a woman out there that is perfect for you, but she makes more money than you?
Nope. I'll take her. I'm serious. I'll take her.
He does not want to be different. He just wants to be like everybody else. So then he goes above and like kind of goes beyond trying to fit in. And everybody, I can see they're like, why is he acting like this? Like we all know Lenny's special. So he just needs to be who he is, and he's not. He tries to be something different.
I need to be the one making more money. I hear so many things about... I hear so many YouTube videos about women.
By men. Okay.
No, it's women to say this unless they don't be a broke-ass man.
Wow. These are the kind of women.
No, they're trying to inform the women not to be a broke man, and I don't want to be a broke male woman. I don't want her paying for everything. I need to be the one.
To be paying for everything, or she doesn't have to be paying for it. You could be paying for stuff, but when you get into a relationship with somebody, you're supposed to be their partner.
Well, I need to be the one doing more. That's the way it goes.
I don't think that's the way it goes. I think that you're being misinformed by people that are just not really great people. I think you're being misinformed.
I'm not.
I think you are. What if you find somebody, and I'm just saying, if you love somebody, it shouldn't matter. It should be like, you just love her, and maybe one day you'll be making more money, and you guys just support each other in that good kind of like foundation.
It's just hard. It's just hard to believe it.
Why?
It's just about being the more independent one.
But you will be independent. You're going to be independent. That's going to happen, Lenny. Sometimes it takes a minute for people. It's hard. That transition from freaking into manhood, that thing, that's hard.
I know.
It was hard.
I'm good, though, Mom. Trying to be good.
Well, trying to be good how? I want you to feel good.
I'm just going through a little bit of struggle. I'm down on myself too many times and it's too tough. Because I feel like I should be accepted doing more in life.
Do you consider yourself like less? Sometimes that's kind of what.
Sometimes.
Why?
I feel different. I feel better than being autistic sometimes.
Let's get past this. Let's get over this and get on with it. Because you're freaking awesome.
I know.
I don't think you do.
I know.
You need to know.
Okay.
I love you. So he's really down on himself. I think once he starts working, he's going to feel better about himself. He's going to feel more productive, like he's out there doing something. Because right now he doesn't feel like he's doing anything.
I always knew I was different. Even before I was informed of my diagnosis of autism, though, I always felt like I was an odd character outside of my peers. But I didn't really understand why. I would often get turned away, or people would ignore me, and I thought, well, what am I doing wrong? And even after learning about my own diagnosis, I still, for several years, struggled to figure out why I couldn't maintain and keep friends, why I couldn't fit in, why I couldn't be accepted. Unfortunately, I think the first impressions I received when I was learning about autism were quite negative, and as a result, I felt incredibly ashamed of being autistic. Every morning when I get ready, I look in the mirror before I step outside the house, and I think to myself, oh, I look okay. I look okay today. And the moment I step outside the front door, I immediately become self-conscious. I've recognized pretty quickly that the way I perceive myself in the outside world is drastically different than the way I perceive myself in my own world. In some aspects, and at some times, I do feel like I have found that personal happiness within myself, or that personal peace. But it's still very difficult for me to find acceptance of myself. I have just learned how to be a good actress.
I wasn't necessarily sure what to expect because everybody on the spectrum is different, and you never know if somebody is going to be very outgoing or kind of the classic description of someone on the spectrum is not, unfortunately not interested, that I'm not into.
I always had this fear people would be staring at me, that people can see right through me. I think it kind of relates to my frustration I've had over the years of being pressured to fit into a social norm. That I'm not good enough if I don't fit in.
Have you ever dated somebody who was on the spectrum before?
Actually, all you guys I've dated are dating so date is the first.
And how is it different?
For me, it boils down to three things. I have a formula here. It's L plus P plus 2T. So each part is 25%. So you got 25% of the P and L, and you got 50% of the T, which results to what that person's grade would be in terms of relationship and dating potential. Now you're wondering, L is how they look physically, physical appearance and attributes. The second P is personality. How about theirs? What is their lifestyle like? And most importantly, is T is how they treat you. Treatment towards you. If, let's say, for example, the person is relatively ugly, and they get like a 50% category in the L category, but they have nearly perfect personality and nearly perfect way to treat you, they're going to score pretty well in the overall scheme of things. So the T has greater weight, twice as much weight in the formula than the personality and looks is how they treat you.
You know, it's funny with Dave, right? He's much more scientific and I'm much more artistic.
I think Dave is trying his best to understand me. I think he always has tried his best to understand me. I think it's still difficult for him to really have that grip, though, of understanding of why I have my particular issues.
That's a very good question, whether someone can love you without truly understanding. I still think it's absolutely possible. Yeah. You know, obviously we have, from time to time, talked about marriage and if we were to get married someday and kind of some of the fears we have with that. Uncertainties.
Yeah, an idea of whether Lindsay would take my name and keep her own name and talk about like prenuptial agreements and how they would be written out and financial matters, how they would manage, things like that.
Yeah.
And where the wedding would take place.
Yeah, well, I think that's not really fears. I think that's just more of, you know, listing the pros and cons and kind of, it's the whole idea of whether marriage is going to dictate that our identities are lost. That's kind of my main fear.
I don't support keeping our own identities. I mean, marriage is just a kind of like a social title we would have, but we still have our own identities. Or I would insist upon it, but
Dave has been through a lot with me, and he's still around. And that to me is definitely evidence of love.
I love it when she shows me physical appreciation, when she holds me, hugs me, kisses me, smiles at me. I always love when she comes to tuck me in bed at night. But I feel like she puts me very high up in her daily list. I feel like I'm very much important to her and that I'm a big part of her life. The T-score is how also ties in very much to how important that person makes you feel. If you get the impression that person doesn't think you're important, that hurts your T-score. When I was first dating her and first meeting her, I never had stronger feelings for anybody else ever before. The fact that they lasted for 8 years, I think it's a good signal that things were on a very solid course here.
Stephen first saw Gita, he was introduced to her and Stephen said, I'm going to make Gita. And after a few days, Gita said, let's have a date. Well, the date is here, and this is the couple. And we hope that this marriage is from God. It's going to be a lasting marriage, a happy marriage.
I met Gita 20 years ago. It was on February 7th, 1993.
What day of the week was that?
It wasn't a Sunday.
What did you say to her when you first met her?
Hello.
And what did you think when you first met her?
It's nice. It was beautiful.
Are you in love with Gita?
Yes, I'm in love with Gita.
What does that mean?
I don't know, it means to fall in love, to give a kiss and a hug.
How do you know when you're in love?
I don't know.
Somebody suggested they knew of Gita. He said maybe these two together, these two will get together, maybe they'll make a couple.
They were kind of complementing each other. Gita is very verbal. That's what Stephen is lacking. Stephen has other qualities that she was lacking, so they really complemented each other.
They lived happily for almost 17 years. And then, unfortunately, Gita got ovarian cancer. And she's fighting with it for the last 3 years.
Remember 3 years ago, Gita had chemo? 3 years ago.
What is chemo?
I don't know. It's a disease.
Is that bad?
It's bad.
So what happened after chemo?
I don't know. She went to the doctor. She went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester.
What happened there?
She had to go. Yeah, she had tests for her cancer. She had tests.
And what did the tests say?
Her condition is, I don't know.
Stephen is very hopeful about her sickness. He says Gita's not gonna die, she'll be all right.
Hi, Marlena. I feel a little better, I'm getting better. The thing with Stephen is that I find that he understands me in his own way. I have a mild learning disability, and but still in all, I feel in a way that I can understand him because because we both have something we cannot do and things we can do, but being that we have disabilities, we can relate all the more. Tell me what else is new.
Nothing.
Nothing? Oh, I'm relaxed all day.
That's good.
Trying to feel better.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but I feel bad that he's not able to express himself. And I try to encourage him, to make him feel as if he can. And you know something? He has improved a lot. How was your day?
It was excellent.
What did you do?
Well, I worked on towels today at MDI.
Towels? What do they look like?
Well, they look like wash towels. They look like dish towels.
Oh, nice. What color? favorite color is red.
Oh, that's nice. You have a nice hat, huh?
Yeah. Just,
Yes.
it's always difficult. It's always difficult, but I got used to it. It's extremely difficult, but I think if I were married to someone who wasn't disabled or who isn't disabled, I'd have more of a problem because that person may be demanding and that want more out of me. So tell me more.
Well, I'm going to dinner at my parents.
That's good.
I hope you'll feel better, and I'll see you later.
See you later, honey. Thanks for dropping by and wishing you well.
You are welcome.
How do you know that Stephen is in love with you?
It's in the way he looks at me. I can tell. He gives me such loving eyes.
Love is a very abstract concept that many people with autism have a hard time grasping. And it's one of those things that's not concrete. As a scientist, I wish I could put it into perspective as a type of subatomic particle, but it's not. Love is basically more like a force. Like in physics, you have forces of attraction. And I have a feeling that love is the best way to describe that as a force of attraction between two people that is neither visible, measurable, or heard. There's no way to quantify it.
I'm feeling a little down about myself right now.
Why is that?
It's been down lately. I've been a little. Sometimes you go through hard times in your life. I feel like I can't get a girl. I don't get no girls at my school. Everywhere I go with the guys, I go home. I see my stepfather, and the only women I see are my good friends, are my sister, like girls that are sort of like my sisters are my home girls, and that's so annoying. You don't see women anymore. It's like I feel like if someone came up to me and said, "Would you want to go to a women's prison for a week?" I'd probably say yes. Would you go to a women's jail for a week and be the only man there? I'd probably say yes. I feel like, if I had a girl, maybe I'll be happy right now. Maybe I'll feel good about myself. Yo, man, I'm gonna admit something to you. Let me tell you something. I like girls that are black. I like them a lot. What do you think about that? Do you know what interracial relationships are? Interracial relationships, it means when different races of people go out with each other. I was reading something on the computer that black women are really independent, and they said that they're lucky girl, that they're really intelligent women, and I feel like that, I want a girl like that, but I feel like I can't.
Why do you think you can't?
Because, they're too independent. I need to be more independent. I need to get a good job and make good money.
You get married for love too, but for me, there's more of a practical component as well. Probably 60% practical, 40% emotional. Always love her. That won't change. But for the specific reasons for the marriage, that's what it boiled down to.
I had told him a few years ago that whenever he was ready to take that next step, that I would be willing to accept. I've yet to hear any kind of indicator that that next step may be taken. I know that we kind of brushed over this, like, when we chatted about it. I do believe you and trust you when you've told me that we're in it for the long haul. And I do believe you, and I do trust you, and I definitely am in it for the long haul for us too. And I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Yeah. I was just still kind of just figuring out, like...
The conversation made me a little bit uncomfortable, too.
Oh, you mean at the time? Yeah. Well, it's uncomfortable for me, too, but it's important. It's important. It's sometimes I think there's conversations that are uncomfortable for us, but they're really important to have, or at least to address them, in order to us to understand where each other are coming from. So, I'm not gonna lie, so...
But having this on camera, I don't like it at all. I don't like the idea of having this conversation on camera at all.
Okay.
It's one of those things that's left off camera, I think.
Okay, we can stop talking about it.
Yes.
All right, thank you for letting me know.
I think I just feel better that way.
Okay,
I just feel uncomfortable being on camera.
All right, no, thank you for letting me know.
But you know how I feel, so don't worry about it.
There's been times that I have questioned whether he really wants to be with me.
Within yourself, you think you can communicate. You think you've said something. You think it should be obvious to somebody that's this. But again, you go back to the antenna. Maybe you are, but maybe they haven't picked that up.
Yes, this is my apartment with Gita. This is our baby. It's beautiful, isn't it? Gita moved here with me, that was 15 years ago. And this is our bathroom. She had surgery in May 2010. And that was 3 years ago.
Okay, maybe it's 7:30.
I'll go see Keith right now.
I think they're eating still.
They're eating, no, they're still eating dinner. You're eating
Yeah,
dinner.
because they're making it late
Yes.
because Gita wasn't feeling well.
I hope Keith will feel better.
I hope so. She did what?
She got nauseous.
Yeah. Did she tell you that?
Yeah, she told me that.
You were there?
Yes.
I'm trying to be positive, man. It's been kind of hard the past couple of weeks. Last week I did something to a girl and it wasn't right. Felt kind of stupid what I did. I was bored. I wanted to see what women felt like. It felt good for a little bit, maybe for like 20 minutes it felt good, but it just felt like two things. It felt like you wanted to do it more times, but it just felt like whatever at the end because it just, I don't know that girl. I don't love her. It felt like, kind of felt bad for her a little bit. People told me that I talked to two or three people. I said, kind of want to say soft because it's so good. People tell me, people would tell me, oh, you got ripped off for just touching your ass. People told me that you could have gotten a hand. People told me that I could have gotten a hand job. People, you know what this stuff? People tell me that I could have gotten a blow job. People tell me that I could have eat her up. People told me that I could have fucked her. That's what people tell me. Those four things people told me. People told me I could have done those four things with the $20 that you got ripped off and delete her number. She told me her name was Diamond. That doesn't sound like a real name, does it?
I've been together with her for 8 years, and a lot of people wondering, why do you still have this boyfriend and girlfriend? A lot of people ask me, when are you going to get married? It's always a big step for a guy to take, and you have to make sure it's the right one. When we talk about it, she may feel like, oh, I do want to marry you, but maybe now's not the right time. It's not likely, but it's possible she might say that. So sometimes what she thinks is different than what I think, so.
I think before I said yes, I want to ask him what in particular had been holding him back the past few years since when I first brought it up.
Nobody was exactly at the same place at the same time. I hope for her sake that they will eventually make a firm and formal commitment to each other. Okay, maybe it's just a few simple words or something like that. Maybe it's just a little formal ceremony, something like that, but it means something. It makes a difference. It gives a base for someone to feel self-confident about giving everything of themselves to the other person without restraint, without holding back. But I think that's just one of the challenges that they've had to work through.
next steps.
Thanks.
Well, I thought we had that conversation recently about how I wasn't reading your mind and I wasn't sure, and then you reassured me that that I shouldn't be worried about anything.
As on TV, it's still, everything is still the case, but still the same thing. You had the idea of marriage, would you?
I don't think you've ever been so candid about this conversation before. I guess we've been thinking about it. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think regardless, I'm always going to be afraid of anything that involves major life transition.
Right.
Right. And marriage is fun.
Is it mine?
Marriage is fun.
Yeah, it is. You seem pretty happy as a couple, though. You seem pretty happy as a couple, right?
Well, the question is, do we feel happy? I feel similarly.
I am high class. You know that? What? Obviously. Obviously. You know what? Let me tell you something, man. I didn't know what the hell happened, man. Let me just tell you what happened. I wish I was not autistic. There. I'm gonna say it right now. I don't like it. Makes me different. I don't like it. I wish I could have been a normal person. I wish I could have been a normal, regular person. My mom said, be autistic, accept it. I tried accepting it. It's hard. Can I be honest with you? If I could change something, I'm gonna try to change it, but I told my mom this right now because of how disappointed I was. I would rather be a normal man than be an autistic person with $1 million. There. If God came on to me and says, what do you want? I don't want to be autistic anymore. I wish you could give me a new me. I can start my life all over again and I wasn't autistic. There. Let me be a normal person. I bet you all the damn people I knew in middle school and high school, they're all in freaking college now. I'm not in college. That's what I wanted when I was in high school. I dreamed of going to college, but I'm not in college. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to college. I think now I should have graduated college. I should have been in college right now. I should have graduated college right now. I know so many people that went to college, they're done right now. I can't hang out with people like that. I can't. Because they're higher than me. Look, they're up here, I'm down here. I'm all the way down here, they're all the way up here. That's what I think. That's what I want. If I found a girl that had a job, had a car, had a home, I can't be with her. She deserves to be with somebody better than me. She's up here, I'm down here. That's the way I see it. It's hard, man. It's really hard to accept at night. Man, this is hard, man. This is tough. This is probably one of the hardest things I have to go through in my life. Don't cry, man. Let me cry. I don't want to see a tear come out of your eye. It's hard. What do you think about me crying? What do you think the viewers could think about this? It's emotional. I can't let that happen. I got no job. I got no car. I'm living with my parents. I should be doing something. I'm a good person, man. I'm not a bad person, man. I'm a good guy. That's just... It hurts. It hurts, man.
He once told me that he said, you ever walk into a room and you know everybody's talking about you? And he said that's how he feels every day when he leaves the house. You know, so I just want my son to be happy. And I think he needs to come to terms with who he is. Because he's not comfortable with who he is. And if he's not comfortable with who he is, I don't know how he can ever expect anybody else to be comfortable with who he is.
I feel sad about Gita. She died last April. She had cancer. That's sad. She was laying down. She was laid to rest. I miss Gita. I miss Gita.
When Gita died, we went to work to tell him. It was an work day, and he was there. And when I told him, he just turned white like a sheet. He put his head down on the table. I could tell he was very upset. She was gone.
Do you feel like you're still in love with Gita?
No, I stopped loving someone. They died, because they died. Because Gita died on April 9th. No longer in love.
It is a big help for him to go back to work.
We encouraged him to pick up life like normal, sort of.
I fell in love with Gita for the past 20 years. And I gave Gita a hug. I gave Gita a hug. I put my arms around her.
we have something called the electromagnetic spectrum. How much energy a wavelength has? We go from radio waves to light, to ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays. And then how it feels for someone is kind of on a similar scale. You have different wavelengths. Going from just physical lust, then you go gradually from a general interest in the opposite sex, then you graduate from having a specific, intense crush on a specific person. And after that, it kind of evolves into another stage, which is the true love stage. You're not having that deep crush where you're thinking about it 24/7 and you have to work on sleeping because you so much love her. But it kind of graduates into a more subconscious form. Let's say you're going from light waves that you can visibly see to ultraviolet waves. They're still there, but you can't see them, but they're strong. Does that make sense?
Are you sure that was the spot where we did that photograph?
I want to say it was taken somewhere around here. This is nostalgic, isn't it? Almost 8 years ago. And it's always amazing when you look back in time how things have grown and how our relationship has grown and what we've been through has been really amazing. That says something. You go for a lift at that low, that is a very strong signal. The relationship is meant to be. And at first, you were kind of confused as to where we were headed. And I remember you telling me you would have been totally happy just pursuing your career and being a single woman. And then...
Remember that slide you kind of show on your presentation, the physics-related slide?
Yes, yes.
Where you have...
The wavelengths.
The alpha, the beta, the gamma?
The delta.
The delta. And I think how I view our experience and our adventure together is that our wavelengths might have been different at different times.
There's a mutual thing.
And I think having those different wavelengths at different times may have been a significant reason why we both may have struggled to really understand where we may be seeing ourselves in the far future.
And now I feel like our wavelengths are in sync.
I feel like we've grown.
We have.
And I want to only go by what's in here.
Absolutely, in here.
And what's in here.
And then trust me, it's in here. It's in here. It always will be. Just say that from the bottom of my heart. And it's okay to watch it if you want to, but I'm saying you did. But this has been a remarkable journey. And somebody as beautiful as you deserves the very best. And a life of happiness together. And I would very much be honored to have you as my wife. Will you marry me?
not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. That quote really resonates with my life. All the negative things that I heard about autism growing up, it definitely made me feel worthless or less. I had consistently set up barriers to protect myself. It's very easy to not feel like that you can trust people. I thought that perhaps Dave was holding back more than I was. But what I discovered through a lot of introspection is that I was really holding back too.
This author's losing entry in the 1948 literary contest begins with Arthur C. Clarke. Lawrence is Clarke, Arthur C. Clarke, New York. U.S. Captain 200. Which cabinet department? The Transportation Security Administration.
I'll put a penny in the water. Make a list. When I make my wishes, I make it clear that I don't tell anybody, okay? And by the way, someone else over there. Why didn't you get filmed all over there? Got one in the left all the way. And then when that's over with, I'm gone. I gotta go back. I like to get there early. No, it's kind of fun. 6 weeks I've been working there for. Here's the one right here. A famous person that had a job like this when he was a young man was Kurt Warner. You know who Kurt Warner is? He's the football player. He's the quarterback who played for the Rams a long time ago. You don't remember how that Super Bowl happened where it was the last second? They were 1 yard short of winning it. Well, he was the quarterback of that winning game. All right, gotta go back now. Sorry. Gotta go. Sorry, gotta go back now. I'm back now. Have a drink of water, please.
Get ready. All right. So, starts here. Okay, ready?
pretty powerful to see that. And you can see all the different phases that those 4 individuals went through. Well, this is the part for our panel presentation, so I'm so very grateful to our panelists. I'm going to introduce them, please. Allison Bordeaux, if you please come up.
Come on down.
Allison is a clinical sports specialist for FAU CARD, working out of the FAU Jupiter office. She's assigned to Martin County, all ages, and then Palm Beach County, the adults, adolescent and adults. She received her bachelor's degree and master's degree from University of Miami, and she's working on her PhD here at FAU, and she's passionate about working with adults with autism. So thank you, Allison. Allison's going to be our moderator as well. Dr. Kelly Everson, she's a licensed clinical psychologist with Palm Beach Behavioral Health and Wellness. Kelly's a partner with the organization. She has over 12 years experience in Chicago and West Palm Beach, working with children and adults with autism, providing comprehensive evaluations, consultation, support, counseling, and evidence-based interventions. Dr. Everson received her bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin and her master's and doctoral degree from the Illinois School of Professional Psychology in Chicago. And then our 2 special guests, Andrew Whittel. Andrew is an adult with autism in his 20s. He was married in 2017 and is currently a graduate student at FAU in the master's program for clinical rehabilitation counseling. He's employed by the National Council on Compensation Insurance in Boca Raton, and he received his bachelor's degree as well in psychology. And then Derek. Derek Rhodes DeLiberty is an adult with autism in his 20s again, currently an undergraduate student at FAU working on his bachelor's degree in psychology. Derek is employed by the American Heritage School in Delray Beach. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Allison. There are questions there for you, and if you have any questions, we'll kind of work through this process and see how it goes.
Hi everyone. So we handed out a sheet with some kind of pre-presentation questions and then some kind of ideas for questions. But I wanted to start first with all of you to see if there was anything in particular that you wanted to ask any of us. If you do have anything, you can just raise your hand. Jennifer will come around with a microphone. Did anyone have any questions? Sure, go ahead.
I just was, within this subject matter, I was really touched by seeing different relationships, and maybe what I think is a standard marital relationship. It broadened my view to what I think is the relationship, might not be the relationship for, either one of the couples that were portrayed. So it really opened my eyes to what I think I know. I don't know if this makes sense, but what I think is a marriage versus what somebody else might think it is. And that now changes my perception of being a parent. This is Henry, this is my son. But it changes my perception of I have to, I think, be more present and listen to what is a relationship from his viewpoint, not from mine. And be open to that instead of judgmental. But it was a great film.
Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to share, any commentary or thoughts after watching the film? Well, one of the questions that we had was what the definition of love is, and I think that kind of lends to what you were saying, is that sometimes our perceptions of what these are might be different than other people's. And so, did either of you want to share any of the thoughts that you had on this? I know that you kind of looked at these a little bit ahead of time, and did you want to share?
So to answer the first question, what is your definition of love? I would say it's just generally a mutual attraction between two individuals, and there definitely needs to be a mutual attraction. It can't work without the others. So So yeah, there definitely needs to be two people who are attracted to each other in order for there to be love. Did you want anything?
Yes.
And also what love means is when you deeply, deeply care for one another. That's what I mean by like when you, the definition for word love, when you deeply care for one another. Does that make sense?
Did you guys want to speak a little bit about the second point of dating?
The definition of dating is when a boyfriend, a girlfriend, for example, would go do other things for fun, like for example, like go to movies, go out to dinner, go to the beach, you know, just having a good time, you know, while you're at certain places, you know, you guys just, you know, make sure that you're there for each other, you know, just, you know, be happy with one another. If you're in a relationship, you know, just have fun, you know, don't just be in a relationship with anybody just to have a relationship. It has to be about the person.
I think everybody has their own definition of dating. For me personally, dating is how you get to know somebody. So like before I got married, when I was just dating my then girlfriend, we found things that we like to do together, whether it was ice skating or like you said, going to the movies, and then that's how we got to connect and interact with each other. And because of that, we were able to discover that we had strong feelings for each other, and we were able to build a relationship because of dating.
So over time that you guys spent together, sharing things that were kind of common interests, you were able to kind of turn that a little bit more from a sort of platonic style friendship to more of a romantic relationship. Was there a moment where you knew that she was the one?
I think I kind of always knew that she was the one. When we were just friends, I realized that I was attracted to her, and then it took me a long time to be able to figure out how to communicate that to her, because the entire time she gave like small hints, and of course me being autistic, I didn't really pick up on that, and so it took about a year of us just being friends before it developed into a romantic relationship. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
On the movie, when the gentleman, I love the way he talked about a relationship. He had a formula. Did you relate to that formula, or what did you think of what he said?
Well, I don't really have a scientific formula for a relationship.
I know, that was him. What do you think of that?
It seems to me like that was like his interpretation of what a relationship is. Like he tends to, I noticed he tended to think like very logically and scientifically, and as opposed to his now fiance. I kind of think of it more like abstract, like it's just more like, I like her and she likes me, and that's very subjective. Like for me, that's just, it's just like how we both, I knew that I liked her, and then I had to and then it took a while for me to realize that, she likes me too.
Right. I think the other part of his equation, even though it was very abstract for me too, but part where I think he spent a little time talking about how somebody is kind to you, and that is something that's kind of abstract, or is it clear?
Yeah, eventually I did. I learned I had to pay attention to how many times did she want to hang out with me, or how many times did she want to do stuff with me, or if she would seem disappointed if I didn't do something with her, and like go to the movies or go to an event on our campus, because that's where we met. We met in college. And when I started to realize that, that's how I started to figure out that maybe there's more to this than just a simple friendship. Did you want to add anything? Or?
That to do with that the part one. I don't like how I understand relationships. I'm sorry, the whole history, like how I opened sort of stuff.
Of course. What's the easiest way to put this? I didn't start dating until I was 21 years old. So before I started dating when I was 21 years old, knowing how relationships work, years ago when I was in middle school, I was in a really bad school, you know, with dealing with the bullies. So when I switched from progressive school to American Heritage in 2006, I had social problems. Like I had spent years like observing how to observe social life. Like for example, in 2006, in 8th grade, I thought that being, you know, I thought that having an attitude, you know, would help me make friends. Just like, you know how gangsters, you know, like be mean to one another to make friends. I thought similarly behaving that way would just help me make friends. But a few years later, you know, the key to making friends is just being myself and being nice. So during my senior year, when I was like all calm and happy and being involved into activities like National Society, Key Club, I had almost everybody in the whole school, you know, looking up to me. So I was really happy that I gained somewhat a little bit of popularity. So I know how to make friends back. I know how to make friends from there. And when I started college, I started making friends. I started making friends in college, of course, but I knew how to make friends. As soon as I met this girl, you know, we became friends for a little while, then I started dating her. Then we started dating for a little while, then we decided to be friends afterwards. So I was able to understand what it's like to be in a relationship after, you know, developing skills to maintain friendships and knowing how to be in a relationship, you know, just be calm and all and happy.
Can I ask that really quick? To piggyback also on what you were just saying as well, I've worked with a lot of teenagers and young adults on the spectrum, and I can see the commonality in terms of, you know, so he's saying there's an equation to this and all that, and you guys both hit on it a little bit, but I think that I've had a lot of kids have equations for how to identify who the right friends are for them, you know, and young adults. And I think that that's a big, and you just hit on that right now a little bit of, you know, how do you, I think relationships start with friendships, you know, really, and I mean, that's the core of any great relationship, right? And so if the first skill in my mind is actually truly, it's a social skill, right? How do I identify the right person for me to be in any kind of relationship with? Do we do, I think you mentioned, do we do fun things together? Do we have, you know, similar interests? You know, how does that line up? And so I definitely connect with him saying he has this equation and stuff, because I've had multiple people come in and say, this is how in my head it makes sense of how I know if this person is a good fit for me, how I know if they're, I think you mentioned like, is she enjoying spending time with me, you know, like how do I know those things? And sometimes for a lot of people it can be easier to break it down, I think, into more, you know, into more non-abstract, you know, thought as well.
I just want to say that one of the things related to that equation that I find so interesting is that it's not really different from what I think most people will value in a relationship, right? I mean, obviously, we have to be physically attracted to somebody, right? And to some degree that matters differently for everybody. But personality, you know, someone's personality really lends to how we connect to them, where a lot of our common interests, I think, definitely lie within that piece. And also how a person treats us. That really struck me. It was so important, and it really is ultimately so important. Like Derek was talking about being able to be yourself. If you're able to really be yourself, what does that look like for you? You know, Lenny talked a lot about how he didn't want to let somebody know that he was interested in Comic-Con. And so there was a portion of himself that he was afraid to share with others, and so he was kind of hiding it. And so, yeah.
Isn't that what the female is saying as well?
Mm-hmm. She put up the barriers, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I think Derek was very accurate when he was talking about once he turned that corner and was able to really just be who he was and be honest and authentic, he really kind of reaped the benefits of that in terms of how people connected with you. Definitely. So let's skip to the kind of the questions that we had kind of set aside for you guys. This idea of like if and when should you disclose that you have autism? Could you share with us kind of your personal experiences with that?
I think personally, like it's, it's really like how comfortable you feel sharing that to somebody. Like on one hand, it may make sense because you want to like see how accepting the would be of the other person might be of that, but on the other hand, you want to see how they'd be accepting of you when you're just yourself. So I'm kind of for like just being personal choice. I feel like for me, I did disclose to my wife, and she was accepting of me, obviously. But yeah, it's really just what you feel comfortable doing.
After you get to know the person for a little bit, if you do mention that you have autism, don't feel ashamed. That person will accept you for who you are. And if you guys do start dating afterwards, still, if you guys still getting to know each other, you can say that you have autism. Or even if you were to wait until you're in a relationship and you say, I have autism, try not to worry, because that person will still care for you and with the time will love you for who you are, no matter who you are, no matter if you have autism, Asperger's, etc. That person will love you and care for you for who you are. My first girlfriend, before we started dating, I told her I had autism. She still cared for me for who I was. So if you say you have autism, do not worry. Just smile and be happy.
The only thing I would add is I feel so strongly that, and it goes back to what we were just talking about, if you have found the right person, like you're just saying, it won't be the biggest deal in the world, right? It won't make a big difference because that person genuinely wants to spend time with you. They genuinely have similar interests, shared commonalities, and so I just think it's all about finding the right person and surrounding yourself with the right supportive people.
Does anyone in the audience have anything to share related to that, to this idea of disclosing and? Sure.
I was recently diagnosed with Asperger's, so for me the question is about what I've shared with certain family members, but then others I notice I have fear about sharing because I know that they're going to deny or say that it's not true, it's in my head, whatever it is, and I just don't even want to have that conversation. So that's the hard part, but my boyfriend actually told me he could see the features in me from our first date, and he was the one that encouraged me to get tested formally, and it's ironic to me to find out that I am on the spectrum because I'm a therapist, I'm a social worker, and I've worked with clients on the spectrum, and I've been obsessed with autism. Like I've started a blog about autism, I subscribed to different summits on autism, and I used to say it jokingly, I used to say that like, I'm obsessed with autism just like someone who has autism has like their latest obsession. So I didn't realize that I was just trying to understand myself more through all those explorations, and the reason I could relate to a lot of those clients I've worked with was because I could see myself in them.
Sure, definitely.
You just hit on something that I talk a lot about with clients and with parents, and I forget his name in the one who was struggling so much about, and he said he didn't want to talk about Comic-Con and stuff. I can't remember who his name was. Lenny. So Lenny in the film kind of brought up something that I talk about with my clients all the time, and that's I think you really have to accept and understand what autism is for you, and it's so different for everyone, So I talk about this a lot with parents and stuff first when they talk about, I don't want to talk about this with other family members or with so-and-so or even with my child or whatever. And I think the first part of it is understanding and accepting. And you did a great job at talking about that, of saying this isn't a negative thing. It isn't something that has to be gloom and doom or anything like that. But I think the first step is understanding and actually accepting that as part of yourself before you even think about bringing it up to somebody else or how you're going to describe it or anything like that. And so you kind of just had that. It kind of triggered me on that. But I think it's really, really important to, to have that validation piece. And it was really sad in the video, I think, that Lenny didn't, that was one of his core struggles. I think he really didn't have that.
And I think it's, again, so interesting that if we're talking about relationships in general, how hard it is to have a successful relationship if you're not at a point where you can accept who you are, right? So these are really ultimately kind of universal concepts of being able to accept yourself is so important because you kind of have to be whole before you can be a part of something else. Andrew, did either of you want to share, did you ever have an experience where, like she was referencing, where there was a discomfort in disclosing to somebody? Did you ever have one of those moments ever growing up where you felt that way?
I think that, well, I think like disclosing to my girlfriend, I mean, at the time, it wasn't that difficult for me because I was already very comfortable with meeting her. Like, it was when I first met her, it was like in the very first semester of my college, and like at that time, everybody was getting to know each other, and so in that situation, it was a lot easier for me to disclose. Because like I knew that everybody was in the same boat that I was in, where they were trying to meet other people and becoming more comfortable with themselves. But in the past, though, I have had difficulty disclosing to others that I had autism. And like I remember especially in high school. High school's the worst. Like in high school, I felt like it was a lot more difficult for me because I was trying to like just want to be accepted by other students in high school. That was important for me. But over time, I learned that the people that accept you are the people that genuinely care about you.
A few days after that date with my first girlfriend, I remember one morning she texted me that she liked another guy and she hoped that she hoped I forgive her and I still be her friend. I said I would be her friend, but I was really bummed out because I really wanted to be in a relationship with her because I thought she'd be the right girl. A few days later, she texted me that she got a little bummed out because the guy she liked didn't like her back. So from there on, we did talk. Be friendly once in a while, though, for 2 weeks, for a week or two. Then 2 weeks later, about 2 weeks later, we were talking more again. Then we were being friends and all for a couple weeks. And on Valentine's Day, we exchanged each other's gifts. Then later that evening, I asked her out. She said, "I think so. I need some time to think it over." Then a few hours later, she said that she'll go out with me. I was really happy. It was the best Valentine's Day ever. But first 2 months, it was like what's the way to put this? Like for me, though, I was kind of nervous at the inside. I was nervous on the inside of me a little bit because I was like, oh my gosh, please don't break up with me because I remember because as you recall earlier, she liked another guy, hoping that she doesn't do the same thing again. But after 2 months of being in a relationship, she loved me for who I was. Then I was like, phew, she wants to be with me. So that's the example I want to provide of when I was like, oh my gosh, please don't date another guy over me, please, please, please.
Yes.
Sorry, I think I'm really talkative today.
That's okay.
You spoke of when you were in high school and where you went to school and you were bullied or you experienced negative fears and challenging social situations. I'm going to talk in what I call sound bites. I just feel that as we go through high school and trying to get a grip on who we are, deal with like social issues. And now all of a sudden here we are today talking about relationships. There's so much like introspection to learn who you are as you cut through, you know, the social skills part. Can you talk about how that was? Because it doesn't just pop out that suddenly I'm ready to have a relationship. It's more like, you know, you said, who are we? And that's really, really important.
Like how to develop friends and relationships,
How did you get from just in a snapshot of maturing from, you know, the negatives, peers, and
to the nice people?
I don't know.
To try and answer your question, well, I meant to add the interest part, like, you know, to basically, just, be yourself, hang with the right people, and also, raise your hand if you know Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
I met Temple Grandin last September. I was very lucky to meet her, and I asked her, Temple Grandin, if someone needed help on making friends, they came to you for help, what advice would you give them, Temple Grandin? She answered this question, well, Derek, you gotta have the same interests. So, and also, not only being yourself, how you make friends and developing a romantic relationship, but also having like same interests. It doesn't have to be like every same interest, it doesn't have to be like 100%, but the more interest, the better. Otherwise, if, for example, I like to go bowling, go to the mall, go to movies, go walking, and a girlfriend only likes to go clubbing, our interests don't match, so that it wouldn't really work for a relationship. So basically, you're just being yourself, and also being yourself, get along with the right people, and have the same interests, like Dr. Temple Grennan told me. I enjoyed meeting her.
I think when I learned like I was beyond friendship to romantic relationship, I think I kind of figured that out when I just realized that we enjoyed spending time with each other, and we did have the same interests. I think those are very important things, but we were also willing to try out other interests. Like I learned that I like to cook too. That's something that me and my wife like to do together. It wasn't just I had before, but it was something I tried and I learned that I like. But by exploring my wife's interests, in addition to her exploring my interests, we learned like other things that we like to do, and we developed new interests because of that.
The only thing I just want to add is that as we see people have positive social experiences, their confidence skyrockets. So, as you take a chance and you try out somebody else's, interest, and you find out that you like it too, we see confidence go through the roof. And so it kind of goes back to social skills, which is, as Ali said, is across the board, has nothing specific to do with autism. It's kind of what everybody is working on. But.
And I think one of the really interesting things Andrew said was that in a reciprocal relationship, not everything's going to match up perfectly, right? So like you might have something that the other person doesn't, like you and your wife. But there has to be a willingness to make that step to try what they're interested in and come out of your comfort zone, it sounds like a little bit. And I think that that's a really positive attribute, right? Because it says that you're willing to give, and what we know about successful relationships is that there's reciprocity, and there's a willingness to meet that person halfway. So I think that was a really excellent example that you gave. Is there a question back there?
Yes. I was going to ask, we are in talking about relationships, and you kind of compare to what society sees. I don't know, there's always, what we saw in the film was like man and woman, relationships, but obviously there's a lot more, different, people's identities or attraction or who or what. And you talk about like normal comparing to like other people, but I don't know, I think that's not really, there's no normal, to be honest. And, for instance, I didn't have a real relationship until I was 27 or something, and but I learned, like, I worked on myself, to, like you guys talked about, to be whole, to know myself, so I could be there for somebody else. Like, what do you guys do for like self-love? Like, I know, you know, that was a question like platonic love and romantic love, but like, you know, what about, like, you know, for me that was a big part of it, like, you know, understanding myself and like, and you know, so I could love, you know, understand somebody else. So I don't know if that's a good question.
So your question is number 4 on the audience questions?
Yeah, and I mean, also to elaborate on that, just like, you know, like self-care, self-love, like, you know, how, what do you do, you know, to be in touch with you, I guess, and make that relationship with, like, yourself.
I try to like spend a lot of time by myself sometimes. Like I'm kind of a little bit more introverted, so I sometimes like to explore, do things on my own, like play video games or go for a walk or go to the gym by myself. Occasionally I do like to get out a little bit and talk and spend some time with friends and family. But I think it's important to try to find time for yourself away from a romantic partner in order to discover, like, in order to explore your own interests and also to remind yourself, like, of your own identity. Do you want to add?
I also had one more question. What about, and we got to see some of the relationship, like, habits and routines they had with each other, those couples. Could you maybe talk about what that's kind of like, a day in the life with your wife? Not to get personal, but yeah.
I think it's like a little bit different. I mean, I think everybody's personal relationships is always going to be different. We share an apartment together. We both work. We're both happen to be in school. I'm going to school for rehab counseling, and she's going to school for occupational therapy. So we're usually out. We're usually away from the apartment for most of the day, but then we spend time like watching a TV show and then either going to the gym and eating dinner together. So it's usually that's how most of an average day is like for us during the week. And then we usually spend time on the weekends, like doing something fun, like going out to a movie or finding something that in the community to do together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First date, for example, discuss what you guys want to do for a first date, and if you guys are curious where to go on your first date, go walk on the beach, or movies, or maybe like someplace to eat. While you're just there to like hang out. Well, it's actually a date though. Just imagine you just hang out with a friend, just getting to know that person. Try not to dwell on the dating or planning a relationship too much, because if you're just only focusing on dating, the communication might just feel like kind of dull, because you're just focusing on wanting to be in a relationship so badly. Just have fun. Just have fun for starters, and because it's gonna take at least weeks or months before considering a relationship. Just hang out with them for a time being.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Sure. Getting your workout in, Jennifer. It's okay.
Yes. My mom and dad got married a long time ago. A long time ago, they met. They tried to get married, and sometimes I want to the baby because my parents love me so much. Because you're the famous guy. Everything in the universe. Oh yeah, sorry, I got it much, sorry. What are the times of dating a relationship for your parents? My dad says, when someone judges have been so many people dating in relationships.
Question
two.
Oh, okay, good. So actually that was one I was going to ask right after. That's an excellent question. So it is, what are some of the challenges of having autism, meeting people, dating, and relationships? A whole lot of things all at once, but if you could share.
I think one of the challenges is just making sure to communicate. Communication is always very important in any relationship, but it can be a little bit more difficult if you're autistic. So I think one of the things that I had to work on was being able to communicate like what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling to my wife, because like if there was something that I wanted or that I wanted to express to her, I had to be able to let her know that. And also it's just I also had to learn about how to be receptive to her and making sure for me to understand how she was feeling and to be able to respond to that appropriately.
The challenges, having autism, and knowing how to meet people is, I want to make sure that I communicate with people, without messing up, and like I want to develop the desire, just to communicate with people without, just being angry or being anxious or not knowing what to do. For example, if I want a relationship, just not only yourself, but say nice things, unless you're in a relationship, if a girl's okay with it, no guy should call girls, inappropriate names like, "Hey girl, you're so sexy," because the girl might think that something sexual is going on, and the girl will be, you'll be scared away. You'll be scared away. So, saying proper names is good. So, like, don't call them names like sexy, because I remember thinking that it was okay, and I got in trouble for it. So that's my advice to everybody. Like, don't, for guys, unless you're in a relationship, if the girl's okay with it, you could call them hottie or sexy or, "Hey, my sexy babe," that's okay. But if you guys are just friends for now, don't call those silly names, because you'll risk getting in trouble with the law.
I know there's a lot of websites out there, dating websites, social groups for men and women that are on the spectrum. Have either one of you previously ever tried it, gone to one of those websites, gone to a social group, and if you have, what was your experience and your recommendation?
Unfortunately, I have not. Have you?
Of course. I use this website once in a while, unless I'm in a relationship, I'm not, but I use this website called autismdateservice.com. I met a girl from the autismdateservice.com. We had a good date, but long story short, we just didn't work out, which just happens. So anybody on the autism spectrum can use those dating sites like Autism Dating Services, for example, .com, autismdateservices.com. I think that's a good website. Other websites like Match.com or eHarmony, I'm not sure, because the people may not understand well people with autism. So dating sites might work for anybody, especially those who have autism, but your best bet of meeting people is social events, like going bowling or karaoke. Meet meetup.com, who's familiar with that website? It's a website where whatever you're interested in, like, you know, going out to movies or anything like that, or fishing, that's the place for you to go meet people. Like, find out when the event's happening and go there on that very day, meet people, and who knows, you might find someone. So going to social events is, I feel, is best and better than dating sites, because dating sites may not bring the results you want.
Can I circle back to the what's uncomfortable about that, the last question? The only thing I wanted to add is from a young adult female perspective, because I have many clients who are young adults on the spectrum who are female, and the thing that I work with them a lot on is physical discomfort, and and maybe you guys have done this already as well, but I think for a female to outline what she's comfortable with and kind of put boundaries on that, because I tend to find that the females, especially on the spectrum, are nervous about relationship, and a lot of times it comes down to the physical aspect. So what's expected of me, you know, what's it gonna look like, what's that gonna feel like, what am I comfortable with, what I'm not comfortable with. And I mean, just like you're saying, this is in any relationship too, but in general, I tend to find that a lot of young adults are really uncomfortable with that piece, and learning how to effectively and appropriately put up some boundaries that says, here's what I'm comfortable with, here's what I'm not, and if it's the right person, they'll respect those boundaries. But I think that that's a big part of kind of being comfortable in a relationship, is feeling that you're safe also.
Is that what you do in your group work with the females?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think part of that almost goes back to social skills too, right? So social skills as teenagers and become young adults includes things like physical closeness and in that part of the relationship. So absolutely, and it's one-on-one. I do a lot of role playing with my young adult clients. Like, awesome, you're interested in this person. How do we go about this? And when it comes up, what you're comfortable with, how are you going to say that? And we'll actually role play it and say this is so that they are prepared to have that conversation. Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to add? Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Derek, to thank Andrew, and to thank Dr. Kelly Everson for coming tonight to share, and particularly you gentlemen for being so candid. I know we're asking some kind of personal questions, but we want to thank you for sharing. And I want to thank everyone for coming this evening and kind of sharing this film with us. We really like it. We think it's a nice kind of representation. And of course, if anyone has any further questions or anything that they ever want to get in touch with us about, we have our contact information up front, and that's it. I want to thank you for coming.
We also have an adult survey that we're trying to get information from adults on programming, so if you'd like to take one, the website is on there.